Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hillary. This week, I'm really pleased to be speaking with Felix Serrano about his new business, Activus Connect. I met Felix last year in Jamaica when he was the CEO of ITEL BPO, and he very recently founded Activus Connect this year. He's the co-founder and CEO, and the new company is based in Orlando, Florida. Activus Connect is a certified women and minority-owned customer engagement organization, and they're currently operating across all of the continental US and Puerto Rico. I asked Felix about the new business, and we explored some of his ideas about how the gig economy and platforms are shaping customer service today. Okay, let's go straight to the interview. Okay, so we met when you were CEO at ITEL BPO in Jamaica, and Activus was only formed this year. So tell me about the new company. You know, what are you focusing on? Where are you based? And what's your target geography and services for the customers then?
Sure, great, Mark. Activus Connect is a cloud-based customer experience provider. In fact, if I just pause there for a second, we're focusing on customer experience provider solutions in the outsourcing industry. So while we know that we're part of the BPO sector, our focus really is on customer experience, both internally and externally. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that means in the way of our brand pillars as we sort of progress through the conversation. But our focus really is on filling a niche in the industry, which is virtual agent solutions specifically enabled by technology that allows them to deliver consistently better, repeatable outcomes in a platform approach, something that while launched in the US, is going to be applicable over a period of time, the world over. In terms of where we're based, today we're in the U.S. We're operating in all of the states coast to coast, including Puerto Rico. In the near term, we'll be expanding into Canada. My prediction is within 12 to 24 months, we'll be at least at the very minimum within LATAM and in EMEA in pilot scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I saw that on your website that you mentioned a lot about very authentic human conversations to build better customer engagement. I mean, does this mean that you think that we're still using voice calls very much as the most important channel for customers today? I mean, despite all the noise that we hear about stuff like social chat and bots, etc.
Sure. Well, listen, I think it's undeniable that voice is the predominant channel these days. But from our perspective, we're focused more on conversations across all channels. So while we talk about authentic human conversations, we're really talking about voice and non-voice. We recognize that there's a lot of technology that's allowing the easier segments of the transactions to be sort of cordoned off. I mean, there's a lot of valuable use cases for bots, as an example, when you need self-service. But when you need to have an authentic human conversation, whether that's voice or non-voice, but you need to connect with someone, you're doing so in almost every case with another person. And so our focus is on bringing technology to bear so that we have the most intelligent, empathetic conversations. We're not dismissing the fact that there's equally great technology, but still at the end of the day, most people want to speak to other people on those things that are most important to them, not on the transactional type of calls, but on the things where they require resolution or where they may be displeased, or the complete opposite, where they're very pleased and they want to be able to communicate that to someone. And you simply can't do that with a bot, as an example.
Yeah, and you mentioned also about building a platform, and it sounds a lot like the gig economy. I mean, are you talking about building a kind of a network of agents that can log in and work whenever they want? I mean, a bit like an Uber driver, kind of going out and choosing when they want to work.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think for us, the platform really is about bringing together the right approach to employees that are going to drive the right type of value-driven outcomes or the right type of brand outcomes, coupled together with an ecosystem approach of technology. So when we talk about a platform, what we're really talking about is a smart virtual solution that, while North America-centric today, will be something that can be replicated again across the world. But in terms of the gig economy, I mean, we see this as a huge opportunity for us. Many of the transactions that we're going to be supporting are higher value. So they tend to be more full-time or part-time employee focused. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there are a lot of interaction types that are short bursts. So for example, Valentine's Day is upon us in a few more months. And there, as an example, someone that traditionally identifies themselves with being in the gig economy, that person that has available time but can't commit to a full-time job, will be leveraging that segment of the pool. I don't view the gig economy as being sort of the driving force behind Activus. I think it's going to complement it because there are brands that require seasonal support, volumes that ebb and flow and require people to adapt to those call arrival patterns. And so the gig economy will help there. But I think platform for us is more in the way of technology and then solutions that allow us to elevate the experience of employees. So less around the gig economy in the context of, using employees for 15 or 20 minutes off for the rest of the day and then come back the next day. And more in the context of understanding where there are the right resources anywhere throughout the globe and then leveraging them for the right periods of time.
Mm-hmm. So that could be particular expertise like languages, for example.
That's right, or technical expertise as an example. So we're presently supporting a client today that does automotive repair, and so it's quite interesting that we have mechanics on hand. They're not sitting there necessarily twiddling their thumbs all day, but through a scheduling system, we're able to bring them to bear through video-enabled support in rural areas for people that require mechanic support. And so that's a good example of someone that might sit in that gig economy because they have spare time, they have expertise, and you just have to marry them together with technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. And of course, this is all focused on working at home. Do you see that work at home agents is really the future for CX? Are we going to see a reduction in the kind of, the airport hangar type contact centers?
Sure. I think it's undisputable that the large sort of warehouse call centers, they're not going to go away. There's a market specifically for them. But we do see that the biggest competitor to the premise-based solution is going to be work at home. And that's for a few reasons. The right person to work remotely is a person that would, in almost every case, never work in a physical center. And there's a large population of available talent. And so from that perspective, we see this model continuing to grow, especially because customers now more than ever are voting sort of with their dollars where they spend. And so if they have a poor interaction somewhere, it opens up the door for them to go to another brand. And work at home brings that level of expertise, that elevated experience that we talk about so much in customer experience, that's allowing brands to sort of differentiate who they are by the quality of the service they provide. So work at home is going to continue to expand both from a pure availability of talent perspective, but also it becomes a differentiator for brands that are looking to differentiate themselves in a market where products and services are largely normalized based on things like price and overall competitiveness. I think separate to that, the work at home adoption outside of the US continues to expand in leaps and bounds. I've already had deployments in Latin America and throughout the Caribbean, and you're seeing adoption in many, many countries as infrastructure gets better. The adoption of work at home continues to increase. And so it'll increase, it'll be a competitor, it'll never necessarily thwart the large box BPOs with mega centers, but I think it's the one model that's going to continue to grow in popularity at a rate considerably higher than any other solution.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I was looking on your website, and there's a very prominent section about an app that you're launching soon that's designed to improve the employee experience.
Sure.
I think it's focused on allowing employees to get their schedule, message each other, and even message their boss. This kind of thing. What's the thinking behind this? And can't the employees just email the boss?
Well, you could, but in an environment where virtual is the predominant method, you have to be able to meet your employees where they want to be met. And so no different than customers from a channel experience, we're approaching this very similar for our ambassadors from a channel experience. We want to be able to give them full access, much like what the sort of legacy intranet site aimed to do by creating a resource portal for employees once they'd arrived at work. through an app, we want to make it nice and simple for an employee to interact with us. We want to be able to give them access to their schedule so they could be reminded today of what their schedule and their lunch times may be. But beyond that, we want to be able to share information that's relevant to them and something that we see the market sort of trending towards. So we want to be able to give them push notifications on things that are relevant to their particular job. When we were talking about the gig economy a little while ago, we want to be able to let our ambassadors know when there are opportunities to log in and handle a few more calls, and likewise when there may be opportunities to take a few hours off. We want to be able to give them access to their earned compensation so that they can see how much they've made this week. In fact, our app will sort of unlock something that's been a growing trend, and that is access to your earned income every day for your prior day's work. We want to be able to centralize things like this all through one common interface such that it's easy to interact with activists and that employees are gaining more value through a unified sort of communication portal. I think separate to that, this concept of just emailing your supervisor, sure, that can still occur and that's easy. We like, from a security perspective, to keep everything in the context of an app. We can control that a little bit more from a permissions perspective, but also the type of interactions that we have are a little bit more authentic. So for us, it's going to be about having to speak to your supervisor in a video-enabled way if you have to call out, for example. And that allows us to create an experience that becomes very differentiated from the common experience that you find in a premise-based location.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Well, I saw also that Activus is very focused on inclusivity. I mean, both inside the company, but also about looking externally and helping local communities. I know you've also actually given an open pledge to give some profits back to local organizations. So how important is it for a business to really connect with their local community? And does this also help the bottom line as well?
It's absolutely essential. I mean, if you look at our 4 brand pillars, which are elevating experiences, building brands, cultivating communities, and enriching lives, you're starting to see sort of an organization that is more people-centric in everything that it does, and supporting the community is absolutely essential. We support the community not only through the jobs that we're creating, and by the way, which we didn't necessarily hit on, the jobs at Activus are living wage opportunities, which tend to be very different from those that are typical in the contact center industry. We're taking a focus that says that by being a cloud-enabled business, we're able to actually pay more competitive wages without having to pass along big price increases. And that starts to form part of how we support ultimately the community, but then also how we give back to the community. So it's through the creation of jobs. But separate to that, we have pledged that on a monthly basis of our net profits, we're going to donate 10% to worthy causes. Now, worthy causes aren't going to fall into necessarily one category. We are very focused on supporting children, helping them through sports, supporting them no matter where there's a need throughout the world. And while we understand that this is a drop in the bucket, we're aligned with organizations that are doing really important things in places like Venezuela and other parts of the country where we know there are people in need. So how important is it? For us, it's fundamental to our business. I think every organization should be sort of approaching some of these world problems in a more collaborative and supportive way. And for us, it's going to be the method in which we do business, giving back to the community, both through job creation and through our profits.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. Please take a moment to review the podcast because this helps other listeners to find it. And if you have any suggestions, then get in touch with me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm at Mark Hillary with 2 L's, or just search Google for Mark Hillary.